Go, go. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.
Okay, well, what's up, TSU? Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. I was battling with my technology. But welcome. Today I'm going to present something different. I'm not sure if we've had a cartoon exhibition in our com week, but today we are going to have a cartoon exhibition. I'm going to exhibit a cartoon with a theme, editorial brushstrokes. And that's going to be a subtitle of Humorizing the Newsroom. And this is because the newsroom, especially in the print media, has always been a fast-paced, or perhaps a chaotic enclave where we process great matters of editorial items. So cartoons and illustrations sometimes create that break that monotony. But in this territory, cartoon stands unique and thrives on visual medium or satirical illustrations, through symbolisms, exaggeration, sarcasm, stereotypes, name them. Well, thanks, Kimberly, for that introduction. My name is Anthony Ogbo, a faculty member here at School of Communications, a journalist, an organizational leadership and management exponent, and a media entrepreneur. But I'll limit my introduction to those aspects that are relevant to this discipline, which is graphic journalism. You see, most folks, especially my students, do not know that I was a fine and applied artist before becoming a cartoonist, and also that I was a cartoonist before becoming a journalist. I started my cartoon career as in 1985 at a newspaper in Nigeria called the Weekly Trumpet. And then in 1986, I joined another newspaper called the Daily Star as a cartoonist too. And since this date, since those period, I worked through the Nigerian Guardian, Point Publication, and freelanced with a couple of mainstream media platforms before relocating to Houston, Texas. And my first journalism job was, I think, at the Houston Sun. What's up, Doris? I was initially hired as a cartoonist and then production director. I also worked with the Houston Chronicle through the Houston Creative Concepts. And at a certain point, I decided along my career that I have to start my own publication. So that was when I started the International Guardian newspaper. And that was in 1998. But this exhibition will showcase some of my recent editorial cartoons and illustrations. Before this, let me take you through the conceptual part of this exhibition, and I'll be as brief as I can. Let me see. So, from the media perspective, a cartoon is simply a drawing, a sketch, illustration, with humorous connotation or features. And some of those characteristics are symbolism, exaggeration, analogy. It could also be ironical, and stereotypes, caricature, name them. Then that brings us to political cartoon. Now, when a cartoon is political, or rather a cartoon is political when it uses both metaphorical or satirical language to convey editorial commentaries on politics, politicians, or current affairs. A newspaper editorial uses similar features and illustrations and graphic expressions to convey opinions and ideas. In other words, the editorial cartoon could, but not always, reflect, the publication's viewpoints. And those are all I will show through this exhibition. Now, coming to the exhibition itself, my editorial brushstrokes, because editorial, when we deal with editorial, we're all familiar with pen, paper, but at this time, it's editorial beyond pen and paper, delve into the, painting, drawing, using all kinds of medium and, creating something visually different. Now, the main purpose of this exhibition is to demonstrate the significance of editorial cartoons in the modern journalism, especially print. Now, humorizing the newsroom pages is relevant because, the cartoon breaks that monotony, of very serious political gray matters that sometimes engulf the entire news content. So my editorial strokes represent my work, my artistic prowess in presenting news and opinions through a collaboration of creative motives, which I will show during this segment. I will also showcase those cartoons and illustrations and demonstrate the real world reality of the practice and process of comic in graphics journalism. So now let me also let you know that these are cartoons, these are real paintings. I use markers, I use water-based colors, I use drawing pencils and pens. I scan my drawings into the system in a reasonable resolution and use system-based tools to create digital finishing. That's what I'm going to demonstrate. However, please note, this is an exhibition of my work, not a forum for political pugilism. I am a liberal, and you may find some of my political cartoons tilted toward that ideology. But we must realize that also every cartoonist has a punch back. There's always that person, or a politician or a public leader, through his actions or decision-making approach, opens up himself, for as a good specimen, for the humor business. So you may find some of those when I show you my work. So it's fun time. Let me share the screen and then let me show you some of my work. I brought a few cartoons because I wasn't sure of the time, but let's get to business here. Let's see. Random. Okay, so my editorial brushstrokes, humorizing the news, the editorial pages. Let's see. So, okay, look at the screen. This cartoon compares the Texas Governor Greg Abbott with the Billy the Kid. This Billy the Kid was a notorious 17th century outlaw and gunfighter of the American Old West. This was around June 2021 when the governor went crazy signing a slate of gun-related laws. So this cartoon actually depicts him as one of those notorious out of control, kids or gun-loving radicals. And it was published in both The Guardian and The Pilot. So see what I have next. But also, what I'm trying to show here is this is actually the real newspaper. And you can see I have a copy here. So what does that tell you? It tells you how we can use these cartoons as our lead stories. That is the power of a cartoon. It shows a difference a cartoon can make, in news delivery efficacy. This is actually our second lead, and it's a cartoon, and it's self-explanatory. And you can see on my left-hand side, that's the actual newspaper edition, and I think it's October 2021. So let me get to the next, see what I have next. Oh, wow, it's one of my favorite. This piece is also self-explanatory. Let me read it out. Without legislation, Muslims and Christians now agree on hijab as a national outfit. But if you look at it very well, one side of it is hijab, the other side is neck gaiter face mask. So remember the long-term battle of cultures over when to wear hijab or when not, or the contention was settled during the COVID because it was difficult to distinguish, a hijab from neck gaiter face mask. I'll also show you where this cartoon was actually published. And that will be the next slide. So that's the cartoon on my right. And then the publication is the West African Pilot. That is the West African Pilot web platform. And that is the cartoon blog. That also tells you, how significant, graphic journalism, can make a news delivery, because the illustration and the caption all stood out, to make that commentary, to render that opinion, regarding the hijab controversy. Let's see what I have next. Oh my God, this is this is an illustration, a lead illustration, and that was when. First of all, let me let you know that political cartoons can be draconian. And here's an example. It serves as both editorial cartoon and an illustration. It's titled Order of Moral Bankruptcy, which is basically depicting an empty head, or in the cartoon world, we call it coconut head. It's a coconut head of President Trump, rendered lifeless by his decision-making woes. But please remember, this is an exhibition of my work, and not necessarily, a forum to kind of engage politically, but I'm trying to show how, those graphics or those illustrations, will be used to present the news, to publish the news, to convey very critical topics in the news platform. So, and also, I think I have, that's how the hard copy. Let's see the hard copy. So, graphic journalism. Let me see what we have next. Oh, wow. I'm sure you remember this. This was actually used to illustrate a feature story. But remember the anti-COVID America's frontline doctors? These are the right-wing leaders opposed, to the what is it called, COVID treatment process. And the ringleader, who believe in alien DNA, demon, chloroquine, you can see, was illustrated differently and framed. And that is an actual frame And, I think it's on a 24 by 36-inch watercolor painting rendered on a 135-pound watercolor paper. I used color pencils to create those strokes. Of course, I started with paper and pens and ended up in the computer system to bastardize the subject and make them look mischievously humorous. But that's illustration. That's a part of graphic journalism. So let me see what I have next. That was one of my favorites. Let's see what I have next. Oh Lord. So this is also, as I said, political cartoons can be sensational. And here is an example. Now this is an election edition of the paper. It's a satire of the former President Trump after his poor election outing. The major attention here is that it grabs all attention, because remember, after that election, every publication came out with the same story: Trump lost. So we have to create something that will make people at least, to look our way. And that is why we made that illustration. But that's just a caricature. It's a sensational piece, but it's kind of, we used it to present, our election coverage. So let me see what we have next. Oh Lord. Remember this dude? Centrist Joe Manchin. This guy became a good material for editorial cartoon after he blew up Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda. Here is a piece showing him confused, drunk, sitting on Biden's $3.5 trillion spending package. This cartoon was published in Guardian, and I think it was also published in some other web platforms. Let me see. Also, it's a watercolor painting. It's a watercolor illustration. I use pencils, and, use markers and all that to achieve those strokes. So let's see the next. So that's our man, Greg Abbott. You must you must show photo proof of your Black ancestors to vote. So what's wrong with that? Remember, this cartoon depicts Republican Governor Greg Abbott as a ringleader of the facilitators of the new laws that were strategically made to weaken the minority turnout and, of course, preserve the GOP's eroding dominance in the political process. And these laws have been very controversial. So I used everything on this cartoon, started with the paper and paint and ended up in some computer system to sustain the needed effects. You can see it has some real photo effect, and then shows, of course, the governor carrying his own big raffle and all that, so to protect his ballot for his people. So this cartoon was used as a lead in one of our print editions. Let me see what I have next. Okay. This is one of my favorite. I will build a wall between the Chinese and American border. China will pay for it. We are familiar with those phrases. The idea is to show how vulnerable political loyalists, followers, or extremists can be. They can believe just about anything. Tell them that Jesus is coming next week, and you will see them trying to sell their properties and prepare for Jesus coming. That's how vulnerable they are. So this cartoon is trying to just depict that. Published in West African Pilot, published in the Guardian, and then some other web platforms. These are, most social media platforms too. So let's see what we have next. Oh, okay. So here we go. Another self-explanatory piece. Again, I am asking, if the governor molested you, please call the DA's office right now. This is a cartoon that came after a devastating report detailing instances of sexual harassment and mistreatment of 11 women by Governor Andrew Coma. So what looks like a town hall meeting of different dogs searching for Cuomo's victim, look, it's a cartoon, but that's how a cartoon could, exaggerate, motifs to kind of create, to make it humorous and also to tell message from a different point of view. So let's go see. So this is way back, a cartoon published in West African pilot showing a COVID positive government official asking if the court would reverse his COVID results. But this news was based in Nigeria. So the cartoon kind of, become hot among, people in that constituency. But it's also the power, it also shows the power of cartoons in journalism, because even though it's a very little piece, it tells a lot about the quality, the caliber of politicians we have in office. So let's see what we have next. Oops. Remember when Donald Trump suggested that disinfectants could be used to treat COVID? Well, that comment generated aggressive pushbacks, including this cartoon. Again, this shows effective application of satire in cartoon. Look closely at the drawing, the pants, the tie, and the bloated front end. Those are all, satirical features that kind of makes cartoon look unique. By now you should have realized who is my punch bag, or who was my punch bag, because these are mainly cartoons that are published recently. Let me see what I have next. Okay. Kim Jong-Un is in coma. He's not coming to my convention. Coma, by the way, what country is that? See, remember, North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un was reportedly in a coma for months, and cartoonists were trying to make something out of it. This cartoon ridicules Donald Trump's questionable state of mind and IQ at the time. So, trying to find out, what's it called? By the way, what country is that? What country is Cuba? So let's see what I have next. I think I'm coming to the end. This is also another cartoon published in West African pilot showing the Nigerian politics. The Nigerian president, speculated at the time to be demented, is asking a top government official which political party COVID belongs to. So that is coronavirus, now is coronavirus, BDP or APC, so that also, a kind of illustration, to tell the caliber of politicians we sometimes elect in the office. So let me see. Oops. Probably the last cartoon. This is Donald Trump tweeting about Defense Secretary Mike Esper, whom, by the way, he tried to fire at that time. Is he for me or against me? Oh, he's talking to CNN, F it. Okay, time to replace him with my son, Aaron. That's exactly what the tweet is saying, which is a commentary lampooning the president for replacing folks that don't disagree with him with ridiculously inexperienced loyalists. That's what this cartoon specifically depicted. And, it was published in a couple of publications and then social media platforms. So let's see, that basically is my last cartoon. So I have been able to demonstrate the significance of editorial cartoons in modern journalism. power of comic or graphic journalism in the society as a whole, and how they address very critical political issues from an entirely different approach. You see, the cartoons help us to comprehend the mood of the country as relates to social, political, cultural, and economic bearings. It can be used also to advocate, or propagate system transformation or change. Also, I was able to use this platform to illustrate or demonstrate the real world reality of practice and process of comics and graphics in the journalism. Again, these are my work, my artistic competence, and they represent his opinion through brushstrokes, through pens, through pencils, and through every other painting and drawing medium. This exhibition was actually created for a face-to-face display, but that will now likely happen in 2023 based on where we are, with the pandemic. But I will thank everybody else, everybody for coming today. If there are any questions, I will be glad to answer. But thank you for coming. And again, Kimberly, thank you very much. Professor Randall, thank you very much for looking after me. And I will hand over to you, Kimberly.
Dr. Ogbo.
Yes.
So where can we see your exhibition?
This particular exhibition?
Yes.
I will upload and send the link.
Okay, but it'll be something in the future.
Yes, I will upload and send the link so that we can share it.
And all of these editorial cartoons, they were a part of the publication, the Texas International Guardian.
Well, in Texas International Guardian, the West African Pilot, and then some other news platform in the social media and then the internet also publish them, because sometimes when you go into Google, you see a bunch of them from different, news outlets, but they have all been published, yes.
And so, what made you become a cartoonist? What led you to that?
Good question. I started off my college reading fine and applied art. And so basically my first degree was fine and applied art. And when I was in art school, I was very good at cartoon. And coincidentally, a newspaper hired me. That was when actually the Weekly Trumpet hired me as a cartoonist. So I was a college student when I was a cartoonist in the Weekly Trumpet. And that was basically my interest, because I've been an artist, I was trained painter, I can, fine and applied art, majored in painting and graphics, so but definitely coming into the newspaper arena as a cartoonist, that was when I kind of got interested in studying journalism and following journalism as a career, because along the line, when I was in the Daily Star, they admitted me into the editorial board and then gave me a column. That was when I fell in love with journalism. The rest is history.
And what type of responses have you received with some of your cartoons or some of your art?
Good question. Well, there are two sides to every story. Actually, one of the reasons I became American citizen was because I was chased away from Nigeria because of my cartoons.
Oh, wow.
It was a military regime, and they kind of started looking after radical journalists, and I happened to be one of them. So when I came here for a meeting, I came here for United Nations meeting. I was informed that my name was on a hit list, so I kind of seek asylum and remained. But the political cartoons, oh, they receive very, very sometimes aggressive responses, especially during the Trump regime. I received all kinds of threats. And by the time they end up finding out that I am not a politician, I am not, one of those, mainstream, political individuals, they will back down, because what happened was that the social media helped to amplify our work. So anytime we publish those, by the time you know it, they are being shared in thousands, to all the platforms. And to tell you the truth, they make very, very tremendous impact in the society, because from the responses we get, it means that, people adapt much. You see, people don't like reading sometimes, they don't like reading a bunch of gray matter materials. So cartoon is the easiest thing they can do and make something out of it. But back to your question, yes, sometimes for political cartoons, for very controversial political cartoons, the responses are not too good. But from the other side, because I'm a liberal, from the other side, of course, they will love the cartoon, they will share it, they will make good comments, but from the other side of the aisle, it's not a good experience.
Well, we have two questions in the chat. We have Dr. Pude ask, how do you become a cartoonist? And are there any professional places to study about cartoons or stuff?
Well, yes, I became a cartoonist because when I was, first of all, I was naturally, I have recognizable flair in drawing and painting. I started drawing and painting probably from my mother's stomach. I don't know, because I knew myself drawing and painting, but what actually made me become a cartoonist was when I was in the art school, I made a lot of cartoons, and at a certain point from the school magazine, one of my cartoons caught the attention of the editor of one of the national dailies, The Trumpet. And he invited me and asked me if I made those cartoons. I said, yes. He said, can you do something for us? I said, when? He was like, well, get us some samples. I said, no, I don't have to go back to get the samples. So what I did was that I went to another room, because as an artist, we carry our tools around. We have backpacks where all our tools are. So I went to another room, the conference room, and, made about 2 or 3 cartoons within 1 hour, and came back to the editor and said, I got something. He looked at it and said, when did you make this? I said, I just made it after I spoke with you. You know what he told me? You got a job. And that was how I got hired. I'm talking about as a student, so it's interesting. Please, I think that this question has a second part. What was it again? Let's repeat the second part of the question.
Are there any professional places to study cartoons?
I haven't really checked. The only cartoons we have, this is traditional news cartoons. Now for most institutions and most academies that I know, they study animation. And I studied animation. I went to HCC and did commercial art, just to get that animation experience and all that. But most of the academies, most of the institutions offer, just animations and, the regular digital cartoons. In the 90s, I think I received a cartoon award because we still have those traditional cartoons in their categories. NAB gave me a first prize in one of my cartoons, but at a certain point, they phased out that category. So the traditional drawing and painting cartoonists are very rare because you must have a fine and applied art experience to do those. Yeah. So, but most institutions that I know, they offer the digital part, which is okay, but these particular cartoons, why they are unique, is because they are traditionally composed. I use pencils, draw them up, draw with pens, do the traditional paintings. As I'm speaking, I have my tools on the side, and then I will scan them, and that is where the digital media plays a role. I'll scan them into the system, and kind of use the digital tools to enhance them and then make them social media ready.
And then you said you use other tools to enhance them. Is that well, I was about to say I'm about to say Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator. What about back in the, back in the day? What did you use to enhance
Oh my God.
your art?
Let me also tell you that back in the days, when Photoshop came out, we can't even use the Photoshop because we have what is called Photoshop 2.0. It has only 3 colors and black and white, red, yellow, blue, black and white. So you have to actually go to school to learn your color mixtures or buy the book. And
your secondary, your tertiary.
It was very difficult to edit in Photoshop then. So then there's no place to scan. We do the cartoon traditionally and send it to the press directly. So the process is done in the press room. But then when desktop came out in the late 80s, and then scanning and all that, became available, we started learning that technology of how to scan directly without sending the traditional cartoons to the press hall. But that was a good question. I use Photoshop, by the way. I use Photoshop because Photoshop has all the drawing and painting tools that you can use to at least, enhance them, size them, change resolution.
Yes.
Yeah, because you see, each of these cartoons are produced in a very large format because they're all framed. So that's why I have to scan them at a high resolution. So if I have to reproduce them, I could get, a sizable image.
Right.
As I said, next year, my exhibition is going to be face-to-face, and those cartoons are going to be right on frame, and individuals can see them and touch them physically.
Yeah, I'm looking back at some of your slides. We do have another question. Is the draconian theme the only popular theme for political cartoons?
I didn't get that.
Is the draconian theme the only popular theme for political cartoons?
Yes. Just like, remember the hard news and the soft news?
Yes.
Political news are already bad news because it's either one party hitting on the other or one ideology hitting against hitting at the other. So political news are tough news. So the best way to avoid those libel and some other restrictions based on ethics, is to use it as a cartoon. Is to kind of humorize it. There are language I could use in the cartoon and get away with it because it's a cartoon. But if I use that language in a regular, write-up, it may be either unethical or against, some journalistic standard. So political cartoons are mainly draconian. If you go and look at most of them, because it has to do with politics. And we know politics is about who gets what and how and why, and anytime you're making that decision, there are oppositions, there are disputations, so that reflects when you are doing cartoons that have a political undertone?
So I know editorial cartoons have to be done in a timely manner because you got to, because it's time sensitive. How long does it take to get an idea to come from head to paper?
Just the same way, it's like asking me if I have to write a story on a very sensitive subject, time sensitive subject, how long does it take me? You know, the only thing that happens is there are things, the regular soft cartoons can only be humorous. If it doesn't make you laugh, then you don't like it. It's not a good cartoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the advantage of political cartoon is that it does not have to be humorous. It could be in bad taste and still people like it. If you see some of the cartoons are exhibited here, some of them are not humorous, but they kind of make so much impact, you know. So it takes, because it's about knowing how to draw and paint. How fast can you draw and paint? If my style is purely traditionally drawing, painting, and scanning. If I have a subject or a breaking news today and I want to do a cartoon, I can sit down in 30 minutes and crash it out. You know, well, I've been doing this since 1981. You know, I have one of my, at a conference one time, somebody asked me, you know, I have been doing cartoons for 2 years, but I look at them, it doesn't look as powerful as yours. I looked at the guy and said, listen, do you know how long I've been doing this?
Right.
These are 2 years. Since like, listen, sometimes when I close my eye, I see just new spraying brushes and paintings. I'm like a spirit. This is 1981, for goodness sake. And I'm still cartooning because it's like a hobby. It's what makes me happy. You remember people smoking? I'm telling you, well, that's what makes me happy.
Yes.
You know, my addiction is coffee and cartoons. I mean, I can skip a meeting, you know, when the idea comes, you know. I remember telling Dr. Lassie one time, can I call you back? He was like, why? I said, just give me a few minutes. Some idea just came into my head. I need to let it out.
That's right.
You know, and I called him like in 45 minutes. He said, oh, that's your 5 minutes? I said, look, I just made a cartoon and you will love it. You know, so that's, you know, that's it's natural, and it's something that is a passion, you know, and that's the good thing about it. It's what I like doing.
And you never know when that idea is going to hit you. And like you said, you have to stop what you're doing so you can go ahead and create.
Yes, that's what makes me a spirit. I don't know when it comes. You know, I remember sometimes I can pull over the parking lot and just take a pen and write down something or type it up on my phone. You know, those are when ideas come, and then, you know, but sometimes you have to really sit down to conceive that idea, you know, because if there is, and I'm going to give you an instance, when Donald Trump made that comment, you know, about using disinfectants to cure COVID and all that.
Yes.
You don't have to wait for an idea. You have to sit down and conceive something, you know. Sometimes you could just sit down and be thinking, how am I going to cartoon this? You know, how am I going to, you know, so most times you don't wait for ideas. You know, you sit down because it's a hot news and everybody is going to write about it. And the only thing that will make mine different from yours is that I'm going to use my brushes and paint to render that motif. So rather than sit down and start writing what everybody's writing, you know, look at about 200 headlines talking about the same thing about what Trump said, you know, I can get on my drawing board, you know, and that's how I end up making that cartoon, you know, on Trump.
Thank you for that. Do we have any more questions? Oh, let's see. Well, that's great. Thank you, Dr. Ph.D. for the comment, and thank you for your questions throughout today. We're going to, and I appreciate you, Dr. Ogbo, for always sharing
Thank you.
your time with us, and always something different for us to learn about, which is always helpful because we need to expand our minds and learn more about each other. And so humorizing the editorial pages, my editorial brushstrokes with Dr. Ogbo is, I guess, our last morning session. And we're going to take another break, reset, and come back at noon for Robert Springer, the general manager of KHOU. But in the meantime, thank you again, Dr. Ogbo.
Thank you.
This is exclusive. Go! Go! Nothing can stop me, I'm all the way up.